Now, in addition to mapping the data lineage, meaning mapping how I can traverse from my enterprise logical model down to specific implementations, such as a physical model, I also want to have a better understanding of how the data itself moves across my environment. And in most cases, we're finding that what we need to do is understand the inner workings of products like Informatica and SSIS. So how can I get that ETL mapping information into ER Studio, into a data model that I can then share through the web portal? And more importantly, how can I provide that in a manner in which my users are going to understand that information? So here's what we do in this regard. I'm going to connect to an Informatica mapping file. So I'll ask ER Studio to point to a specific file. I'll point out that a file is simply easier to use for a demonstration. And in most cases, what you would be doing is actually connecting to the Informatica repository or to the SSIS repository. And as you can see, we do indeed provide that capability. Now, at any rate, what I want to do is I want to read from that Informatica file. But directly importing a complex ETL mapping is going to create a structure that most of my users are not going to be able to understand. And what they really want to get from this data is simply an understanding of the data lineage implicit in that mapping file. If I'm looking at my average cost by ID column, I want to know how it was derived. And that's exactly what we do. So what I'm doing now is leveraging a feature called, or a product called ER Studio Data Lineage. This is going to allow me to import from SSIS, from ETL products like Informatica, as I've mentioned already. But what it's going to do is not provide a direct import, but rather it's going to derive the data lineage from those mappings. As I step into this, I'm going to have the ability to choose a variety of methods for deriving that information. And today what I want to see is my target column-driven information. In other words, I want to go back to that first example where I was looking at something like an average cost by ID column, and I want to understand how that column is derived. Now, one of the things that we do with this import is we do create physical data models for anything that was referenced in that ETL job. And in this case, I can see that this job is referencing a DB2 database as well as 2 Oracle schema, and those have all been imported into the mapping. In addition, it's created a visual blueprint. It's created a map that allows me to quickly and easily understand how data is flowing. In this case, very simple example. I'm looking at the employee table that has a single column for address, and if I look at the transformation information for that, I can see immediately that that information was derived from 4 different columns from my address table. This is the magic of our ER Studio data lineage. This is of course a simplistic example, but in ETL jobs this could be a 15-step transformation. It could be something that's very difficult to understand, but in all cases what we're going to do is condense that down to a single transformation object, which we can explore to understand the input and output columns. Again, I can immediately see the columns that are being utilized to derive my address information, and I've even got the ability to see the logic being applied. In this case, I can see the concatenation that's being applied to condense those 4 address columns to a single column in the resulting data model.